Hey, welcome back everyone to our third webinar in how to house hack in Colorado. So we're going from conceptual to hyper local to what's working in Colorado and mostly focusing on house hacking in Denver. So in today's webinar, we're covering the best locations around Denver. What are the best strategies? Airbnb, medium-term rental, room by room. What should you do? And also some very specific local rules and regulations about different permits, some cities, some counties, all that local nuance stuff that you'll learn here. And we'll talk about the best property type because newsflash, buying the fourplex is not the best house hack move. All right, so I want to give a big shout out to one of our sponsors here for the House Hacking Summit, and this is 3 Pillars Law. The principal there and my friend is Byron Elliott. He's done a bunch of LLCs for me, some other legal work for Ben, a bunch of our clients as well. So if any questions regarding legal entities or legal help with your real estate investing, Byron and his team at 3 Pillars Law are a great company that a lot of us use here at Envision Advisors. A lot of our clients use as well. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the third part in our 6-part webinar series. If you did not catch the first 2, definitely go back and get those because the education does build on top of each other. But today we're doing a deep dive into what is working around town. So for the host, my name is Chris Lopez. I'm the guy in the blue there. And then we got Ben Einspar with the Envision Advisors. What's up, Ben?
Living the short-term rental and medium-term rental house hacking dream.
Ooh, what a good way to weave that in the intro, man. Jeff White, what are you doing? How are you doing?
Just living the all-in dream of doing a little bit of everything. Have to one-up Mr. Ben here, but
we're gonna switch spots next time.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got Troy Howell, who's our amazing lender, and Troy, you got a hard act to follow up, man. How are you doing?
Just trying to make the dream happen for people.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
You're the guy giving away money, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's what Troy
the
does.
suitcase to the closet. Large bills.
All right. So a big thing here, obviously, we have a lot of fun. We all work together. We do a monthly house hacking meetup. We alternate between a happy hour with alcohol and a happy hour with caffeine on Saturday mornings. So we got the next one coming up March 25th, but always check out the next one coming up because Jeff and Ben do an amazing job going there. And this is where you get the magic of like networking and just kind of like the behind the scenes. Hey, what's working? What's not? I got a beer or 2 in you. Let me kind of hear some horror stories. Great place to network. So we are huge fans of networking and would love to have you come out and we'll buy you your first beer as well. All right. So jumping into today's webinar about the best locations and the best strategies here in the Denver market is let's go take a step back, look at our North Star, which is this 3-factor alignment. So we want to find that sweet spot where these 3 concentric circles overlap. So that's your strategy, that's the market, and that's the goals, your goals. So today, we are really talking about strategy and market, not your goals. We did that in the first webinar, actually the first 2 with the goals and the financing. So keep this in mind as we go throughout here, as you go out through the webinar, because we will come back and reference this, well, because, this strategy is good for this, this, and this, but in this case, maybe not. So keep this in mind. It is our North Star. So what I like to do here is, we want to present the information in the best way that we can so people understand it and can hopefully go out there and apply it so they can go out there and buy their house hack. So we've put this webinar into an FAQ or frequently asked questions format. Why? Well, because the way we often think is, hey, I want to do this, or I'm thinking about this. What's the best move here? So we're modeling after over 100 plus house hack deals that we've done with Envision Advisors, probably well over 1,000 plus conversations between the 4 of us at the table, plus our other team members. And so we're taking the common questions from clients and the common questions from prospective clients on what should I do? And that is how we're formatting it on here. So what is the best location? Well, there really isn't one, but what we did here was that we plotted a map. Now, this doesn't capture all the deals that we've done in Envision Advisors, but you get the gist. The blue pins on there are house hacks. So people living in there, renting out a room or having roommates or short-term rental. The red ones are nomad, and these are people living in the property and then moving out and turning into a future rental property while they don't have roommates at the time. So we look at this, Jeff, you're a data guy, trends guy. What do
Yeah.
you see?
I see 75% or more look to the west of I-25 there. And that
I
makes
concur
sense.
with your data analysis so far.
And it's really interesting because it's not just the house hacks. It also looks very much so nomads. So that tells me people want to be closer to the mountains. Maybe price points a little bit better to the west than the east on certain parts of that, some of those points. Other parts definitely not. Like I see a couple like near Sloan's Lake and Highlands, but that's what I notice when I first see it.
I don't see any in the central Denver area where the expensive locate, like the Highlands, those locations. You see a gap in the center of the map.
Yeah, in core Denver
There
here.
you go. Yep.
Yeah.
We don't get much. Troy, anything jump out to you on there?
Yeah, just what Ben was pointing out too. I think that price point, the density of that. Maybe
And-
not.
And so, I mean, this, Jeff hits it. Most of it's between West I-25. And that's very common because a lot of people move out to Denver for the mountains, for the recreation, for the fun. And I really think like that West I-25, a little farther west than Highlands now, and between the foothills and mountains is a sweet spot. Great location. And Lakewood, Arvada, Wheat Ridge, they are still relatively affordable compared to the Denver MSA. And that's where a lot of our house hackers are like, yeah, I want to go here. So this next slide is the same data with the house hacks and nomads, but we also plotted out rentals. And these are landlord rentals. So people who are not owner occupying the property, but putting on 20 or 25% down payment. Now, what you see, there's a lot more rentals over there on the east side in like Aurora and east of I-25. Well, why is that? Well, because we see better numbers or higher cap rate properties or higher cash flow. Now, this is a balance where like, hey, these properties look really good on a spreadsheet. But when a house hacker is doing that balance, like, hey, what's a good investment property, but also what's good for my situation, my goals? Hey, I'll give up a little bit of return so I don't have to drive an extra hour across town to go skiing this weekend. So just an interesting data point there. So again, hopefully you guys can draw some conclusions from here, but also follow the trend. A lot of people buy west, northwest, and I wonder why. It's the mountains and overall really good value on there. So Jeff, let's talk about some general location stuff as well, because we get people saying, hey, what part of town should I invest in? And there's certain things we can say and certain things we cannot advise on as licensed real estate professionals.
Yes. And as a licensed realtor, I cannot give advice because it's called a concept called steering. And I can't say, oh, this neighborhood's good, this neighborhood's bad. You should definitely buy over here because the schools are better over here. That is not for my judgment.
Yeah.
That's for the client to determine because they could find that information for themselves and just point them in the direction of that information. And they can make that judgment, not the realtor.
Yeah, and so like people ask, hey, is there high crime here or is this a good area? Well, again, crime. Go to Google, bunch of free resources, get the data from. We can give you trends and tell you, hey, where numbers are doing well, where we're seeing good opportunities, where a lot of our clients are buying, but we can't give that type of information because it could cause just, some fair housing issues essentially, which we don't want to do. But we'll tell you what we can and can't do and give you the really good resources out there so you have all the data armed from our perspective and also other very reliable resources. All right, so let's talk about the cost of commuting, because this is something that no one ever talks about with rental properties and really without house hacking, because we look at, oh, this is an amazing property, that's a duplex, it's got this, I can do this, I can do this. Hey, that's all great. But again, you are living in the property. And Jeff, I know you do this all the time here, where you buy a property and you move every 10 to 13 months, essentially is what your strategy is here. What is the true cost of commuting and how do you calculate that?
Yeah, no, the true cost is very simple. It's just basically determining where your job is at, whether it's in the tech center, downtown, up north in like Broomfield, and then basically trying to really aim to be within, I would say, reasonable distance. And I define that as 20 to 30 minute drive. If you go further than that, to me, you better get it's almost like an inverse relationship. If you get an amazing deal, then the drive isn't as bad. But if the deal is kind of like a base hit or double, it's like, okay, you're going to feel that 1 hour drive each way, each day. And to me, that's not worth sacrificing your 1 year commitment basically in this property to deal with that extra stress of sitting on the road driving all the time.
Exactly. There's two things. There's time
Yeah.
and there's the cost of gas and wear and tear in your car, which is what, 55 cents per the IRS or something. So there's real time on there. And of course, hey, more people have flexible hours, work from home. Keep that all in mind. You know your situation, but definitely spend a couple minutes and calculate the cost of commuting. Because here's what's interesting. Before Jeff was a superstar agent, he was actually just a house hacker client. And I think the second place I'd be by was in North Glen.
Yep.
That was number one, right?
Yeah, with number 2.
Was that number 2?
Yeah.
Okay,
with
number
Charles.
2 with
Yeah.
Charles
Yeah.
was in North Glen. So, basically up in Thornton,
Yep.
and your job was in Commerce City.
Yes, to start.
So not too bad of a commute.
Yeah.
And then job changed to Lone Tree.
Yeah, I got a job right after I closed to make the lender happy.
Right.
So I didn't change right before. And
Good thinking.
and basically went from North Glen to basically Commerce City to North Glen to by Chris Lopez way down south in Lone Tree Meridian area, like past Park Meadows. So that was the longest 1 year of my life. I remember it just felt every day I wake up at like 5 and then I get done at work at like 7 just because I didn't want to deal with all the traffic. It was just
But there's no good way through like I-25 through downtown Denver.
no, there's
always
no
something.
shortcuts. There's no shortcuts. And I remember one day we had a big snowstorm and I made it out, but I got the last bus to like get my car out of there. That one crazy snowstorm that year in 2019. But anyways, that was the longest year of my life, and it was absolutely not worth it. Cost a lot in gas, cost a lot of just time and stress.
Yeah.
Just I got a good deal, but if I do it all over again, I'd probably pick a job that was definitely much closer than Lone Tree.
But here's the thing, like even the government says, hey, if your commute or your job changes drastically, you can move out before the 1 year mark. What does that mean, Troy?
Yeah, it means that there's an opportunity there to take advantage of. You don't have to stay the full duration of the 12 months, and case by case with a good explanation. And you had a good situation with the job move.
And I did get it
help.
approved. I waited 10 months, and then I said,
and it's got to be reasonable.
Yeah.
Right. That's the key.
Reasonable. That's it. But there's a whole bunch of things here because we didn't talk about some financing in the last webinar, Troy. But there's reasonable life changes, a job change, getting married, starting a family.
Yeah,
kind of redeployment. Yeah.
From a military standpoint, you got moved.
Yeah. So we forgot to mention the last webinar. So keep that in mind that, hey, you need to keep this stuff in mind. And if your life changes, make sure you talk to your lender and say, hey, this happened. Any options there for me?
Troy, I got a question for you. If you're wanting to move, do you talk to your lender for your previous loan or your future loan?
You could potentially on the back end, but I would go for the future loan first and foremost. Good question.
Awesome.
All right, so let's talk about Denver rental license requirements. So this is one of the things we talk about being hyper local here, where we give these trends, and then Denver, and we're talking Denver County, which is the same as Denver City, this year just started enforcing Denver rental licensing requirements. Jeff, what is it? And you've been through it.
Yes. So basically, Denver passed an ordinance or a requirement for every multifamily to start on 1/1/2023. All the multifamilies have to be licensed. And then on 1/1/2024, all the single family homes. So basically, I've been through this whole process. I just got all my places licensed right before the end of the year after the podcast you did with with
Eric and Brittany.
Yeah, exactly. So I just took action. But basically, the requirements are very simple. It's just health and safety. So stuff a good landlord should do. So fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, CO2 detectors, and GFCIs in bathrooms, egress windows in basements, stuff like that.
So yeah, it's a bunch of safety stuff. It's different than Section 8.
Yep.
It's different than short-term rental. It's a brand new thing. It's just for Denver County. Remember, Denver MSA is 5 counties. This is Denver County. So make sure you know the rules and keep in mind as you're out there shopping. And some people are very anti-rental license. Fine. Probably don't buy in Denver County. Maybe go buy in Arapahoe or Adams instead. We have a really good podcast on there, so go scan the QR code, check it out. Bunch of details, but definitely make sure you know them because Denver is starting to enforce it. And what I've heard, it's a little bit of a fluid thing where they're figuring out as they go, it sounds like. So let's shift gears here and actually talk about what the best strategy is for house hacking. And this is one of those bubble alignments we talked about earlier. And like I said, there's no best strategy. There are strategies that produce more cash flow on the market, but they're usually trade-offs. So we're going to go through the popular ones here. So that is the rent by room house hacking strategy, short-term rental, a medium-term rental, or a nomad strategy, which you buy a property, live in it with no roommates, then move out, convert to rental, and then talk about doing some combinations on here. So it's all really good stuff, and we can give you the high-level strategies to help you understand what is going on in the market and what's the best strategy for you. So Ben, you do a ton of short-term and medium-term rental stuff.
Yep.
Give us a high-level overview about what is going on with STRs and MTRs.
So this is one of the strategies that is very popular with our clients. It's essentially you're buying a traditional short-term, a traditional house hack style house with some sort of separate income suite, whether that's a ADU, mother-in-law suite, carriage house that you rent out as a short-term rental or a medium-term rental, because that strategy will get your most bang for your buck, the most income per square footage, I would like to say. And that's one that I personally implement. And so if you're looking to scale your business and you're implementing a medium-term rental strategy, reach out to Maylene. She is a great medium-term rental property management.
Yeah. Rules and regulations.
Yes. So
this is a fun slide.
One of my favorites. So let's go over some terminology real quick. So short-term rentals is any rental period for 29 days or less. Medium-term rental is 30 days or greater. So with the short-term rental rules and regulations, they are always changing. It's a lot. So if you want to get the quick answer, call your local city planner. But for anyone listening, stick around. I have a quick and simple solution for you. So wait for that. And then medium-term rental rules and regulations, very loose, allowed in all Denver metro areas, but be sure to look at the HOA if you're looking for like a condo or a townhome. Those can typically limit the lease length. So be sure to dig into that.
And just in general, always look at the HOA docs, whether you're buying as a rental, primary, medium-term, or short-term. So great advice, but always read the HOA docs. So can I short-term rental the other side of my duplex, Ben? This is a question that happens or gets asked a lot, I should say.
It's happened twice today. I've got it.
Really? And it's not even lunchtime, right?
Yeah. So quick answer is it depends. Depends on the rules and regulations. But if the short answer, if you're in Denver County, the answer is no, because that is a different property. That's a non-owner occupied property. So the answer is no.
So here's how the way Denver looks at it. You have, your duplex, unit A, unit B. If you live in unit A, you can short-term rental unit A. But if you live in unit A, you cannot short-term rental unit B. And yes, we've asked the city like 20 times on this, numerous people, you cannot do it. Same thing goes for like triplexes and fourplexes.
Yep.
Now, of course, other counties around town, hey, as Ben said, go check those rules and regulations because it depends.
Yes. All right. So short-term rental licensing requirements. So most cities allow owner-occupied short-term rentals. However, there's only a few select cities that allow non-owner occupied short-term rentals. But the cities that do allow the short-term rentals, they have each city, and when I say city, I mean like Lakewood, Wheat Ridge, Arvada. I don't want that to get confused with counties because we're going to go into that in a second. So each city has its own different license requirement, own way to go through the process, different taxes you have to pay. In short, it can be a lot.
Yeah.
And so Denver has the greater Denver area has 5 different counties, and within each one of those counties can be 10 plus different cities, and each one of those cities again can have their own requirements. And I'm not even including the cities that overlap, where there's incorporated and unincorporated counties. So it
gets a little bit confusing.
Yes, it can be very confusing, and I didn't name them all. It's just there are too many to count on this slide.
Yeah, but you highlight there's just a lot of variables on there and some, things that go on top of each other where, hey, it gets complex with various rules and regulations.
Yes. But like I said, I have a solution. So if you're a Vision Advisors client and you're looking to operate a short-term rental, reach out to me because I've already done the work. I've gone through all the city and I've listed out in each city its requirements, whether it allows short-term rental, owner-occupied, non-owner-occupied. licensing requirement steps, and link to their website. All of the gist to give you your perfect cheat sheet. So if you're an EA client and you're wanting a certain city, reach out to me, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to give that to you. All right. So short-term rentals are great, but just a quick overview on some of the challenges. Yes, maintaining short-term rentals, there is a seasonality period. So you have to make sure you're keeping occupancy during slow season and managing your pricing during the busy season.
Well, let me give this, because you're right, and you're an operations guy. You're going
I'm
to
an ops
operations.
guy.
I want to take a jump back and get to that 10,000 foot view here, because when you are owning a short-term rental, you have a hospitality business. It is a business. It is different than a long-term landlord. You're running a business, and there's a lot more things to be mindful of and take care of, and you are running that business. What Ben has done, because he has done short-term rentals himself, and then Ben's operational mind dissects things, does step-by-step, does all these crazy spreadsheets, says do this, also great flow chart.
To make it easy.
That we need, which for people like me, I love. Like, I can't create it, but I like reading it from smart people like you.
Yeah.
So what we did last year was actually put this into a online course through teachable.com, where we dissected what everything Ben has done, taking the best practices, a bunch of tools, a bunch of tips, and put it in here. So you can purchase on the website. If you're a client, you get it for free. If you're watching this, you can get a coupon code. Regardless, either way, reach out to Ben.
Yep.
He'll hook you up. And I know, Ben, it's hard to self-promote you on here, or hard to self-promote a course you do, but you did an awesome job on here.
Thank you
of
for that,
really
Chris.
dissecting what things need to do. So I can do a better job of tuning your own horn than you can, but it's a really, really good. It's a really, really good course.
Thank you.
All right.
So move to the next strategy here.
Yeah.
We got Jeff White here dealing with everything, but rent by the room is something you've done a lot of.
A few times. It's it's been one of my main strategies since the one when Chris Lopez was an agent that would show houses. That's how long ago I started doing rent by room. So rent by room is absolutely amazing. It's one of the few strategies that works basically all over Denver Metro, and you don't necessarily need a 10-bedroom house. If you have just a basic condo, you could start there. You could start as small as a condo all the way up to 6-7 bedroom house, and it works in that whole spectrum of both sides. And ideally, you would want the big house, of course, because you could add more bedrooms and bathrooms, but that's just the ideal property type, and we'll get into that later too.
Yeah. And so something I'll ask about this house, room by room house hack. Someone moves in, puts 5% down. Do they generate cash flow while they live there right now?
It's more, the reality is they'll probably be breaking even, maybe cash flowing a little.
So about living for free,
Yeah.
give or take a few bucks.
Yep.
What about short-term rentals, Ben? Are people a lot of times seeing break even, negative cash flow, positive cash flow, or just too many variables?
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends on what side you choose to live in, and if you're in the bigger side or smaller side.
And of course, two things. Interest rates have gone up, and Denver is no longer an inexpensive market. These strategies, short-term, medium-term, and room-by-room house hacks, are some of the better ways to maximize cash flow and get to the point where you can live for free or cash flow while you're living there or once you move out. Ooh, here's something else to keep in mind. We'll put you guys maybe a little tailspin here with a bunch of details. But if you go back a few slides, Ben had all those cities and municipalities written out. They all have different rules, not just for short-term rentals, but a lot of times how many people can live together, unrelated people. Jeff, explain this to us.
Yeah.
What are we looking at?
So basically, if I was renting to everyone in this room, we're technically all unrelated parties to each other. So unless you could prove somehow that they're and I are third cousins or something, we're all unrelated parties. And that's where, if we were living in one house together, this is where the rules would apply. It's a very simple concept. And each city, just like Ben's thing, each city has different limits, basically. So you can see Englewood's at the bottom at 2, all the way up to 5 for Denver, Parker, Longmont, Lakewood, and other cities. And it's just important to know that, because when you're doing the rent by room strategy, sometimes you might be approaching that cap, and sometimes you're under it, sometimes you might be over it, and know that if you're potentially over it, it can be taking a risk because that is the limit for each of these cities.
Yep.
Yep.
And of course, as always, we're showing you data that we know to be the best at the current time. But anytime you're out there looking at a property, put an offer in, always come back and double check with the city or county for short-term rules, room-by-room occupancy limits, all that stuff. Now, Troy, I got a question for you. So we're talking about all these rules and regulations. How many roommates I can have? Can I have short-term rental or not? You as a lender, you the guy giving me money, do you care about this stuff?
Really not really, because we don't qualify you based on that. So when you're house hacking with a rent by room strategy, we need to qualify you on your own. There's very specific circumstances where you can count that income, but that's a rare day.
Yeah.
So that's the 0.0001.
So Troy and other lenders, they cannot count the income, and nor do they care how many roommates you have typically, or,
Nope, as long as
hey, what's this or what's this? That's your responsibility as a borrower. Right. Just make sure that you can pay the bill, please, right?
Yes, yes, please.
Yes.
That's all we care about.
And Jeff, I'm going to toot your horn here as well, because right after we released Ben's course on short-term, medium-term rentals, you released a course on doing room-by-room and self-managing for both as a house hack and just like a self-managing landlord as well. So same thing. It's a teachable course, has a ton of great information there, and it's just a dissection of how you scaled a great portfolio where you self-manage. Plus, people get a free copy of our lease, which we spent a good chunk of money on. So you get a free lease with a room-by-room addendum in there. So it's free to A clients. And if you reach out to Ben and Jeff, I'm sure you guys have a coupon code floating around too, right?
Absolutely. It's ready to go.
Any other highlights in that course, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's everything that when I first started, I just went off, figure things out, kind of like the school of hard knocks. And this course is everything I learned the last 6.5 years, and put it into a course to minimize the mistakes and get you up and running a lot sooner.
Yeah. One thing you didn't cover is what I liked. I went through your course. I like your screening process.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's very undervalued, is screening good tenants for rent by room.
Yeah. And that's really the secret. I would say if there's one secret, that's really the main thing. But
oh, yes.
Check out the
tenants?
Yeah.
Yes. No, so both those courses are solid. So everyone check those out. Now let's talk about the nomad strategy. So this is a term that dates back to, like the Mongolian plains, where they were nomadic tribes where they would, live somewhere and they would literally pack up their house, put it on their yak or their woolly mammoth, and go commute for a couple hours. So one of our good friends, James Orr, who's an investor up in northern Colorado, coined this term because it's the same concept where someone goes in there to buy a house hack and they're using a favorable 5% down payment or what are their down payment program. However, they don't have roommates. They don't have tenants. They don't have a short-term, medium-term rental. They're just like buying the place really with that low down payment owner-occupant financing with the goal of moving it out and then turning it into a rental. And this is where so many people get focused on, oh, I got a cash flow or I got to meet this while I live there. That is savings. That's not wealth building. What is wealth building is buying a property and playing adult monopoly. Getting a greenhouse, getting a greenhouse, getting a greenhouse, getting a greenhouse. Now, while you live there or not, while you're living there, if you have income or not, that does not make a big difference in your future wealth creation unless you need that money to help pay your bills to buy the next house hack. So we have a lot of people use a nomad strategy. Probably about 20 to 25% of our clients are nomads.
Yeah.
And these are people usually with, families or people that are older and want more privacy, or just like, hey, I make a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
I can pay for the privilege of not having roommates, but I'll put down $30,000 versus $130,000 on a house. So it's an amazing, amazing strategy. We love a lot. And then Jeff, you're like the king of this, combining house hack strategies. Just give us a high level how you do this.
Yeah, so I like to look for properties that are separate entrances, like a duplex, but they have like 2 kitchens, 2 laundry facilities, where you could not just rely on Airbnb or rent by room or just renting to a long-term tenant, or medium term. You can kind of mix and match, and that's my favorite part. I love this picture too. So it's really
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks.
Great choice, Ben.
Did you pay him $20 to say that, Ben?
I shot him a text message earlier. I'm like, Jeff,
Ben literally had to explain this image to me
think
as to
outside of the box.
This is IQ for realtors. We have to explain pictures to each other. Anyway, so going back to important stuff, because you are the king at this, Jeff, like layering things on. This is where you get a little creative.
Yeah. So, for example, my most recent place, it's a duplex. It's actually a traditional duplex, but it has
Like a real duplex.
real duplex, and actually has where the basement goes in on our side. We put a wall up, made a separate entrance, and we're going to do rent by room on the bottom. And then the other side, we're doing a long-term Section 8 tenant. So we're doing two strategies, and we're still enjoying living there with some privacy. And we've done those types of rent by room, long-term, Section 8, and basically combine multiple strategies to maximize our cash flow while living there, and not just being reliant on one type of strategy.
And if you're not familiar with Section 8, it's a government voucher program for people that need help affording, safe housing. And the government basically pays for all of it or a good chunk of that tenant's rent bill. So we haven't covered on here, but I mean, I like Section 8. You like Section 8. A lot of landlords use Section 8. They're great tenants. And you have some government help on the rent as well. So we can go into all sorts of nuances on here. Just understand that you can be creative. You can think outside the box. And we actually have some really good YouTube videos on walking some of these properties as well. And then we can send you those links to it. Or there are a lot more on the Bigger Pockets channel that actually do a video walkthrough. One of them being what Jeff said, it was a single family home, but like a duplex, section in the bottom, room by room up top. Really, really creative strategies that Jeff is doing here. So, we are throwing a lot of stuff at you guys. We are saying, hey, do this, do this, do this. This all goes back to those three circles of the market, the strategy, and the goals. And this is why we always do comprehensive consultations with our clients, well, actually prospective clients as well, because we're very good about making all three of those circles align for you. And that is a great value that we add to our clients and Vision Advisors. Troy does with his clients, which a lot of times are the same clients. We actually help put together a business plan on, hey, what makes sense for the market, what makes sense for the best strategy, but also what makes sense for your finances and your personal living situation. So please reach out to us if you need to set up a comprehensive business plan session. We'd love to sit down and talk with you and map out a plan and earn your business. So shifting gears here to the next topic in our webinar. What is the best property type to house hack? And so this could be, hey, do I get a big house? Do I get a duplex? Do I get a triplex? Do I get a condo? What do I get? So there will be some overlap here with the strategy section, but now we're going to look at it from a property type because that impacts other factors in there that we talk about on the strategy side is financing, locations, and just overall trends for that type of asset class. So we're going to go through those in in a high level detail, and we'll do underwriting of these property types in the next webinar. So Jeff, talk to us about big houses with lots of bedrooms.
Yeah, they're way more on the market. Like if you look at the
way more, you mean more available or higher price?
Both. No, just quantity of houses. So the beautiful thing about rent by room strategy is it opens up the doors to a lot more properties to look at and analyze than just saying, oh, I have to do Airbnb or a duplex or triplex or quad. You could, when you do large single family homes with 4+ bedrooms, 2+ bathrooms in the 2,200 square foot or more style, there's a lot of those on the market. And what's great is you just have to find one that works in your price point that you qualify for with someone like Troy. And can you add a bedroom or two? Simple as that. If you could add 2 bedrooms, that's 2 extra rooms you're renting. And now you take someone that sees a 4-bedroom house, you're like, it's no deal. I'll move on to the next one. You just made it a 6-bedroom, and now it's a great
That's
deal.
An extra $1,250, $1,250 a month in cash flow.
Very simple. Yeah. And it's like that power you have. And you, instead of looking at 10 duplexes in Denver Metro, now you have hundreds of houses that fit this criteria.
And a lot of times to do these, add a bedroom, we're talking, a lot of times $500 to $2,000 to put up some walls, maybe run a little bit of electrical stuff. Yeah. It's a very, very minimal cost value add often. All right. So talking about different house hack styles here, going away from single family homes. Next, we have some more of the creative house hacking styles.
Yes. I mean, like I kind of touched on earlier, they're typical houses with some sort of separate income suite where it's young professionals wanting their privacy, but also to maximize their income. So they're renting out ADU, mother-in-law suite, garden level suite. But the key is that helped us find ours was this custom search filter that Envision Advisors have developed over the past 5+ years of doing this, of a half a dozen search filters that pick out these homes, so I don't have to go searching for and looking through each filter. So that was one of the huge value adds that I found.
Yeah, and these house hack, style homes are great. So as you go through them, the numbers going to be amazing. This is a great sweet spot in the market. But you always want to look at, hey, what's this look like? Does this fit my criteria? And if you want that shortcut, definitely work with us because we got a bunch of really good MLS filters that we just fine-tuned over the years. What about duplex house hack deals? We don't do many of these.
No. Out of, like it says on the slide deck, less than 10% of our transactions.
Yeah, and Jeff kind of alluded to earlier, just like there's very limited supply here, just in here, like there's a lot more single-family homes than duplexes, just, as a fact for like housing inventory. And when you get into duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, a lot of times that attracts a lot more investors as well. So a different type of clientele, a lot of times owner-occupants buying a house, but the investors love multifamily, and they're usually very, very competitive. So we don't buy a ton of duplexes anymore, for price point and those reasons we talked about. It's a lot more the big single-family homes for room by room, and more the house hacking style homes, the separate entrance and separate income suite. That is the vast majority of our transactions now as house hackers, because that's what's on the market. It's also what makes sense. Triplex and fourplex house hacks. So Ben did some amazing math here.
I did.
We have 0.0000001% transactions.
Yep.
Basically 0 transactions. We
can't put 0 on there. Yeah.
It's about 0. Troy, give us a refresher. What is the FHA self-sufficiency test?
Well, it's just making sure that the owner-occupant borrower can qualify for a certain portion of the payment, essentially at a high level. So they need to be able to carry a good portion of the payment without the support of the other units renting out.
And if you use an FHA on a single-family home or duplex, there is no self-sufficiency test. But in the triplex and fourplex, there is. And just as you said in the last webinar, because of price points and where they're at, most places fail because the units cannot pay for themselves to meet this test. So we have not done one in the last 2 years. And the one we did like 2-3 years ago, the person put almost 20% down to make up the difference to make a cash flow. And Jeff, even when you bought your first fourplex house hack 5 or 6 years ago, you ended up putting down what, 8%?
7%.
7%.
Even back then.
Yeah.
Close. But yeah, it didn't meet the test, so I had to bring a larger down payment.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So, I mean, we'll definitely look at it. We can underwrite it, but just realize that we've done 0 deals. I think probably, what about you as a lender? Have you done any house hack, triplex, fourplex the last couple of years,
No,
Troy?
no.
And so I talked to other investors, other brokers. I talked to lenders, and it's usually like, no. So look at it.
Hence
but
Ben's 0.000.
Yeah. Condos and townhome house hacks.
Who wants that one?
I'll take that one.
Great.
Yeah. So I think because I've helped a couple of clients recently purchase these, like a couple of townhomes, and they're amazing because it's a lot lower barrier entry in the price point. So they're great for first-time house hackers that are just getting started, making the median income or around that for Denver Metro that maybe can't get up to buy a single family. So this is a great entry point. And another nice thing too is you could still do the same concept. You could add bedrooms, you could add bathrooms. Of course, review with the HOA. That's probably number one. A lot of these HOAs, like Chris alluded to earlier, don't just jump into any condo or townhome complex. Make sure you check it out, review everything, review their lease restrictions. Sometimes they allow, greater under 30 days. Sometimes they don't. Most likely they don't.
Usually they don't.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
But
very
a lot
rare.
of them allow normal rentals
Yeah.
over 30 days, but you still have to review it. I've seen some that you have to do 6-month leases or more. I've seen some that basically you can't do rent by room at all. But that's where a good agent will help review those with you and help you out.
All right, and like I said, the biggest reason on here, I want to go back to what Jeff said, is it's a lower price point. So a lot of people, hey, first time house or first property they're buying or their budget, condos and townhomes are going to be the lowest price point, which makes them very, very attractive. So I want to go back. We got some good questions here coming from the comments. Gabby, I'm going back to House Hack Styles, says, hi, it would be great if you could talk to the renovations and cost. Let me zoom on here. The renovation and cost you tend to see for traditional house hacking style properties. Do you see people taking the time and the money to add those separate entrances, bathrooms, kitchens, etc.? Or do you take more time to look for properties that already have those? And it seems there aren't many. This is a great question, Gabby, and I can't believe we forgot to put this in the slide, so thank you. So she's saying, hey, should we go out there and focus on properties that already have the style? Or should I focus on properties where I can go in there and add a separate entrance and do it myself? Jeff, you go first.
Yeah, no, great question, Gabby. Very simple. It's really going back to your goals. Like some people are comfortable with construction projects. Some people want to move and ready property. And then it also goes to what you're pre-approved for. That tells you what you can and can't look for, or what properties fit your criteria from there. So those two factors will really determine that. And then to answer the other part of your question is, yes, you can look for, with the proper search, you could actually look for specific key. You can already find the separate entrances. You could find those certain things that fit a good house hack property with a good agent that knows what to search for. That's the difference. And simple ballpark numbers on things, that's hard to answer. You have to kind of, it really just depends. But that's, again, if you have someone that has that experience, that understands, that is like a partner with you and understands the cost, and having a good contractor list, that's a huge benefit too. But really overall, if you're looking for a house hack property, it's just takes a person that understands what you're looking for and can meet everything that you want that fits your criteria. That's the difference.
And I agree with you. And I'll go back to just some more high level trends we see our clients on here. And I mean, Ben, I think you were one of the clients when you were buying your first house hack in Arvada years ago. Same question. Hey, let's go in the basement, see if we can add a kitchen, add a bathroom, and do all this. And I would say, I mean, it's probably close to like 99% of our clients, they do not do that. Because what happens, hey, you want to go in there and, add something in the basement? Well, okay, add a bathroom, add a kitchen, all that. A lot of times you're $10,000 to $30,000 with you doing some of the work. And then it takes people 6 to 9 months to build it out. And so there's a huge cost there, where if you look at that, it's like, okay, great. I got two things here. I'm having to put an extra $30,000 into this property. That's cash out of your pocket. And that's cash you can't use for the next down payment on your house hack. And then also, it's the time to go out and build out. I've had so many clients, we'll do this. And then 9 months later, how's it going? Oh, we're still working on it. I get that, but now you've had 9 months of rental loss. And you do 9 months times $1,500, adds up to some real money on there. Yep. So very few people do it. I say, generally speaking, Gabby, very few clients go out there and do it themselves. Other than what Jeff said, some very minor stuff. Hey, let's add a wall. Let's add an interior door. Let's move an electrical outlet where it's, handyman to some GC stuff, maybe a couple $1,000s. But we've had a few people look into, let's actually add an entrance and cut it through the foundation. That's going to be $15,000 to $25,000. So generally speaking, most clients don't do it for the price point reasons and also just for the time of doing it. Yeah. And but wonderful question.
One of the things I see very common, Gabby, is the second washer and dryer for short-term rentals, because they're wanting, depending on where they're living, they're wanting that second washer and dryer. So that's a very common thing that isn't as expensive as you'd think it would be, but we see that quite a bit as well. I just wanted to chime in.
Oh,
with that.
I mean, how many closets next to a water pipe or the bathroom have our clients converted to a second washer and dryer,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
But you look for things like that, and then it's like,
Yes.
hey, it can tie in here relatively easy. We're not
Yep.
running 30 feet of plumbing across the house.
No,
That's hard, but
simple.
the other side of that wall's got a drain and got hot water and cold water. Cool, we can probably tie into it.
Yeah.
So this is all those little nuanced stuff where you kind of find the sweet spot, and like, our team just, we've learned a lot of this and done it ourselves. A question here from, I can't read that name on there.
Stasek.
Stasek. There we go. Thank you. For these large 7 to 6 room single family homes, have you guys or any of your clients run into the occupancy limits issues with the county? And can you get around those issues if you Airbnb out some of those rooms, like the ones that cannot be legally occupied with long-term tenants due to occupancy laws? This is a creative question on here. I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah, I'll start with just if you go over the limit. So I would say there was a study done by the city and county of Denver a couple years ago when they raised their unrelated parties from 2 to 5. They did a study on how many code enforcement violations of the city and county of Denver do people report on each other about unrelated parties.
Yeah.
And that total number percent-wise of all the complaints was like 0.1%. And of that 0.1% of all the complaints, only like 5 were proven to be like breaking the 2 unrelated parties, because it's really, if you don't provide your documentation, like how are you and I related, they're not the police. They can't force you. So code enforcement, they care more about bigger stuff than unrelated parties. But that's the reality in a big Denver, city and county Denver. If they do find out, then that's just, you'll have to remediate with code enforcement. But Ben, I guess, is it, what would you think of that?
That's a great question. I'm stumped too. I would say it goes back to like, what is your risk tolerance and is it worth it? And what's your plan B? That's it. Like, you go for identify what risk tolerance is, but will a property work if you can't implement that strategy and you operate that room? Well, it wouldn't be a long-term rental because then you're exceeding that. Yeah. You just have a plan B.
Yeah. And again, your risk tolerance, like, they're, like I said, Jeff pointed out the stats on there.
Yep.
But it also depends on municipality. Let's go to the other end of the pendulum. If you go up to Fort Collins, Northern Colorado, they have UTC +2, I believe, is their owner occupant and zoning rule. And when you sign a lease, you have to like have everyone sign it, who's living there, submit it to the government. It's a high level of that. I don't own any properties up there, but they're very, very strict. And they enforce up there. So if you're up there, FYI. But down here, luckily, I think we have a more common sense approach. So great questions, guys. Thank you. All right. So going back to the 3-factor alignment, we just fire hosed a lot of information on there about the market and about the strategy. Didn't really talk about your goals, but we really focused on the market and the strategy. So hopefully you got the high level items to understand, hey, what's working, what's not working in Denver, some of the pros, some of the cons, some of those local just rules and regulations and gotchas to be mindful of. But again, use all this as the North Star. And just because you hear about Jeff's crazy way he stacks strategies, he does these combo things, doesn't mean that you have to do it. So you take this information and you figure out, hey, what's the right fit for you, your goals, and your situation and your budget. So next week, we're going to do a deep dive into underwriting house hacks. And so, we've been the high level, hey, there's this, here's the concepts. This is spreadsheets and numbers. So a lot of you guys will love it. We'll go through the underwriting rules of thumbs that we use for estimating insurance, taxes, property management fees, all that stuff, and actually go through these different types of deals. And these are recent deals at higher interest rates, not something about 3 years ago at 3%, but something about 3 months ago at 7%. How do those numbers make sense in today's market? Because, Troy, are you still giving out loans and people still using loans at 6%, 7% rates?
Unfortunately, in some cases, yes.
Yes. But they're still making the numbers work.
Right.
Jeff, you bought a house hack. You're still doing deals at 6-7%, right?
Yeah. Just closed a couple last month.
Yeah.
And it's great.
So high level,
It can work.
the stuff works. We'll go through next week and actually do underwriting, and we'll do it with higher interest rates in there as well. So a big thank you to our sponsors on here. we're going to give more details out to all these sponsors. Want to make sure you guys have a great team for the help you need. And jumping to further questions here in the in the comments here. And Jacob says, speaking of code enforcement, would you say that it's very rare to sell a single family property where the buyer requires the seller's building, electrical, plumbing permits? Is there much risk involved in selling a property where it's been changed, modified without these permits? Okay, so a couple questions on there. So would you say that's very rare to sell a single family property where the buyer requires the seller's building, electrical, plumbing permits? So here's the reality of it is like you can ask for it, and sometimes the seller gives it. Sometimes, a lot of times, the seller does not give it. And in Colorado, we have the seller's property disclosure, which is 3 pages of this, what I know about it. And unfortunately, more often than not, he can come back with pretty blank stuff. So you can certainly ask for it, but the reality is a lot of sellers don't provide much stuff. I mean, Jeff, what would you say to that?
Yeah. What's up, Jake? Good. Happy to have you on. I would definitely say regarding permits and all that, if it's done to code, usually the reason people ask like why a buyer, if you're buying a house from me and I did all this work to my property, but it looks a little janky, you would say, hey, Jeff, show me all the permits you got for this. And I'm like, oh, I don't have any. And then you might question like, okay, is this work done well? But if the work's done really well and you see it and it looks great, you probably don't care, like, because it looks great and you want to buy the house. So that's like, if it's done up to code and by like a licensed professional, you should be fine.
Yeah.
But that's the reality. Like most people don't ask for permits unless they have like a question like, oh, was this roof looks like it's fallen off? Was this ever done correctly?
Yeah. And that's a really good thing is there's like, hey, are there permits? And also what was the work, what was the work done up to?
Yeah.
Because even a lot of properties that, hey, nothing's been done to them, but they were up to code 30 years ago. They're not up to code today. Not good or not bad, but just another factor in there. So personally, I am more focused as an investor on like, hey, is the work done to quality? Is it good? And this is why we always recommend our clients and every buyer out there is hire a independent third-party inspector that you pay and is out there inspecting their property on your behalf. And in my mind, that's one of the best things you can do in addition to like sewer scope and radon. Mm-hmm. Woody says, how do you handle shared rentals with different tenants where there is a shared kitchen and a bathroom where one tenant is messy or refuses to clean their mess? So we won't go into all the details here, but that's actually our 5th webinar is you've closed, now what?
Yep.
We will go into a lot more details on there. And plus, that's a lot of what Jeff's course does. But what's the high-level answer to that, Jeff?
House rules. Really simple.
I like that.
House rules, period. Move on.
A little more into it. Just basically, it's every person has a different definition. Like when you're doing rent by room, people have different definitions of like what's clean. Like Troy might say, "Oh, Jeff, you leave your bacon grease out all the time. You never throw it away. It's really annoying." And I might think it's fine because that's how I grew up. And then now we have like a weird tenant dispute and I'm making this mess and he's so annoyed. But if you establish good precedent and expectations up front regarding cleanliness and picking up after yourself, like you'd be surprised if you set the expectations up front about when trash schedule is, putting stuff in the dishwasher. Some people don't know what that is, but you have to remind them. It's usually you minimize 99% of those types of issues that going back to like your college days of people leaving messes and no expectations, but they all get along and you have a great time with your buddies. But that's the truth. So
great question, great high level summary, but check out the 5th webinar and definitely Jeff's course. All right, we got a few more questions on here. But definitely make sure we show Troy's contact details on there. I think a lot of people know who you are from last week's webinar. A lot of our clients know you because you've given them money. But Troy is one of our sponsors here on the house hacking event. He's also one of our go-to lenders and vision advisors. Always does an awesome job in helping our clients and also just doesn't drop the ball and gets the loan closed, which is something we always appreciate and compliment of. because surprisingly, a lot of lenders just don't do their job. You do, Troy. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Always reach out to Troy if you got any questions regarding what you can buy or borrow, or we're tax time now. Talk to him before you file your taxes, especially if you're self-employed. Play that game. So Virgilio has a great comment on here. In my area, the code enforcement office will show online permits pulled for properties. That's a great point. You can go to a lot of times to the online website and see what's pulled. Sometimes there's info, sometimes they're not. Cool. All right. I think that is all the questions we have on here.
Christine on the bottom.
Oh. So, Christina says, do you get much more rent by the room if tenants have their own bathroom? I'm debating about adding one to a current 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So, I don't know. This is actually really random. One of our house hack clients, I think it was actually Austin, he wrote this. He did Austin's a very smart guy, very data minded. And he scraped a bunch of listings off of Craigslist. This is 5 years ago. And then categorized them into looking at room by rooms and saying, hey, is it a rental, a room by room rental with a private bath or room by room with a shared bath? And I think he came up with hey, for a private bath on average, again, Denver Metro is $100 and change in extra rent for a private bathroom. Of course, if you're living in the Highlands versus a room by room in Aurora, you're going to see some different discrepancies in general in rent and probably some different premium and what people can pay for it. But yes, we do see a higher rent premium for room by rooms with the private bathrooms. I mean, Jeff, that was data from 4 years ago. Yeah. Do you have any more recent data?
Yeah, so simple numbers. In the Denver Metro, with your 15 minutes of downtown, you should expect to get $850 to $900 per month for your room with private bathroom. Very simple. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less.
What about without?
Without, go $100 less than that number, and that's pretty much the ballpark range of what you should expect to get when you run your numbers.
So there we go. Austin and Jeff both give $100. There's the answer. Yep. So again, big rule of thumb, but that's a good rule of thumb to keep in mind. But of course, spend a few minutes on Craigslist and Facebook groups to see what rooms are going by in your area. But yes, you can get that. Then you work backwards, see if that juice is worth the squeeze for you. All right, fantastic, everyone. This is a great webinar. Yep. Ben, Jeff, Troy. Thank you, guys. I'm always glad when we get all of us in the same studio at the same time. So thank you, guys. And everyone out there in the webinar, thank you, guys, for coming out and watching and listening to us. Don't be shy with questions. Reach out to us for questions on buying a property. Reach out to Troy for questions on financing. And, of course, reach out to our sponsor and help with legal, sewer, electrical, anything like that. So, everyone, thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.